So Root Recruiting. What's Root Recruiting? Root Recruiting is a marketplace application that connects medical facilities with healthcare professionals. So first off, actually, my name is Mudassir Saeed, and this is Farheen Ibrahim. We're both co-founders, and so, yeah. So I guess the biggest thing is healthcare staffing market. It's over a $15 billion industry. Huge shortages from staffing for facilities as well as medical professionals. And by 2021, there should be about a 13% increase in lack of professionals, sorry. As far as key market growths, there's two factors that contribute to it. Aging population, as well as lack of paramedical professions out there. Currently, by 2017 alone, there was over 500,000 nurses that retired or actually left the profession. It's kind of cut off, but so a couple things that currently the medical field are burdened by are inefficient access, expensive with the traditional staffing agencies and staffing models, as well as an outdated process. Technology is not widely used with a lot of companies, so that's where we kind of come in. We're kind of performing a lot of these checks and payment systems, and we've automated the process. As far as the top 5 obstacles that current recruiting process faces is finding qualified professionals, finding quickly and filling those positions, finding enough to fill all those positions, as well as HR recruitment is only part of my job, and location, finding someone in a finding someone very close to you, close to the hospitals and close to the clinics that are in need of these professionals. So Recruiting, basically, it's a platform that connects healthcare professionals. We do background verification, we credential every individual. We also go through a process to vet the facilities to actually make sure they're NPI, they have NPI, they're actually a legit facility. And we've been able to have immediate access 24/7, as well as streamlining the communication process between the professionals and the facilities. And sum it all up, we actually charge a lower fee. So why Root Recruiting is better? So like I stated in the previous, we have 24/7 access, user-driven profiles, and we're able to rate both sides. So professional can rate the facility, and facility can rate the professional. Secure payment processing, and easy scheduling, as well as a mobile-friendly application. And I'll pass the mic over.
So now we're going to talk about how we make money, which is obviously the most important part. I'm kidding. So we're able to do this by charging only a 15% charge on top of what the hourly worker asks for. So how this works is, say I'm a nurse, I'm on the facility itself. I say, okay, I want $35 an hour for my services. And say someone wants to contract me for 10 hours. What Root Recruiting will do is charge a 15% on top of that $35 an hour and charge that to the healthcare facility. So it's very similar to the Uber and Lyft model, except we pass that charge, that 15% charge to the healthcare facility instead of taking a cut from the healthcare provider. We charge a 2% placement fee for direct hires. So if a facility wants to hire somebody off our platform, they're only paying 2% as opposed to 10 to 20 to 25% that they usually get charged through a recruiting firm. And we're actually thinking of white labeling our service for larger healthcare facilities such as Baylor and some of the other larger groups that need, maybe they don't want to go onto our website, maybe they want faster portal access. So what's really key with Root is that automation and indexing is really helping to solve some of the key pain points, and while reducing operating overhead for us, so we can offer our services at a lower cost while improving the speed at which these services are being performed. our competitors. Who are we competing with? One, the traditional staffing and recruiting firms who operate in the healthcare space specifically. Two, just generic online job boards. And three, other kind of contract type positions, job boards out there like Jobble, Shift Gig, and Nomad. And one thing to note is that none of these other like these specifically here, do not target the healthcare facility. They're all kind of generic and in other spaces. And it's interesting to note that regardless of all these options that are out there, less than about 25% satisfaction rate exists across the board. So we have quite a large gap that we can potentially come in and fill and solve these pain points and improve that satisfaction rate. So how do we do that? Here's like a summed up chart as to how we make this easier, and I think what's going to be the most helpful for both facilities and the contractors is these profiles, these having those profiles be easily accessible and have it be easy to use. Scalability, how are we going to grow out of what we're currently doing and get bigger? So what we're going to do is start out with the 10 most in-demand positions. By the way, we launch April 1st. Is that it? Okay. And then we're going to expand to other tangential licensed professionals and specialized workers. And vertically, we hope to come into the physician-surgeon placement market. And how did we come about the idea and actually validate our business model? We talked to a lot of physicians. My family, my mom, she ran a clinic for over 10 years, and she herself went through a lot of these pain points, and she really, we really were able to understand what physicians go through when they own their own clinics and other smaller to medium-sized healthcare facilities go through. We talked to the HR personnel who actually were in the hospitals doing this sort of recruiting. We talked to healthcare recruiters. And we also talked to a lot of paramedical healthcare providers as to how they're currently being recruited and used in the market. Obviously, we did a little bit of market research as well. So a little bit of legal. Why is there not a product that's already out there? Well, that's a good question. We're not actually sure, but what we are sure of is that the independent contractor employee model is already in the healthcare space. A lot of nurses and even doctors are engaged as independent contractors and not employees of the hospital. And in the past, there's been a little bit of shift federally to get independent contractors to be actually hired as employees. I don't want to go through all of it, but it was actually under President Obama, when David Wild was the Department of Labor investigator, he was the champion at addressing the fissured workplace. Well, we have a new administration now, and actually in June of 2017, a lot of those policies got withdrawn. So we're at a very ripe opportunity to enter the market and have the law be on our side. Is that it? Okay, well, our team, Mudassar, who has a technology background, I'm a practicing employment attorney, and we also have sales and a finance person, Donnie, actually one of my friends that I went to law school with, who's also an attorney, and then Hanan, who is our project manager.
Thank you for the presentation. As we can tell, it's very hard to get through a lot of information quickly, but you did a good job, so we appreciate that. Let's open up for questions, and again, just have the microphone with you when the questions are asked.
Hi, Farheen and Mudassar. Nice presentation. I was just reading a book about Birdsong model. Have you read that book? It all deals about nursing and how it's revolutionizing the nursing model in Netherlands. And Ernst & Young is in a case study on something similar because he used two terms, satisfaction and scalability. I'm just trying to comprehend how can you measure those metrics, satisfaction and scalability in your model versus Birdsong. If you read it, great. If not, that's a good book to read.
Definitely. We'll try to get a hold of that and read it pretty quickly. So satisfaction, you know, we're going to have to measure that by doing surveys, and with our application, I think it's going to give us a good base to conduct those surveys and capture data. We're big into capturing data, so hopefully through both the healthcare providers as well as healthcare facilities were able to capture more of that, get feedback, and we're very open to feedback. This was an evolution over a year, and we've incorporated a lot more features that we didn't initially think of just by talking to people and thinking of ideas.
Yes, in the slide before, we do have 2 sales that both, as far as scalability. So currently we're launching in the Dallas marketplace. So it's a small controlled environment for us. So we should be able to answer a lot of these questions that arise, and actually we're more agile, so we can make changes as we go along. And as far as we have 2 sales people on the team who have experience selling to hospitals, clinics, hospice, home health care agencies, and that gives us, I guess, a direct line of communication to us. Instead of going to our website, shooting us an email, or sending a message that way, or through any other social media channels, they'll get direct communication to us, and they can easily call us and say, hey, looks like they're having issues with this. What can we do? And we can quickly adapt and change. But I will read that book this week, so thank you.
So what is your current strategy on recruiting healthcare professionals? How do you go about finding them, or how do they find you?
Sure. So we have several models for that. Tony, one of our salespeople, is actually an ex-nurse, and now he's in the marketing space, and he's going to help get the word out there to his colleagues, as well as just going to all these healthcare provider-specific events. And we also have a very aggressive recruiting model in terms of social recruiting. So anyone who refers someone else to join join our site. So example, I'm a nurse. I get one of my nurse friends to join. I'm going to actually get 2% of every job that she works, so 2% off the top. So it's a recurring model to where for the life of that person being on our site, the referee gets 2%.
And also, we're a part of a lot of meetups, local meetups, also a lot of LinkedIn and Facebook groups that allows us to kind of tap into those markets, as well as kind of everyone. Hanan, who's our project manager, she's actually worked in the healthcare space, technology, as well as managing a practice. She actually moved from New York just recently, so she has a ton of information and experience that can help us out.
Okay, so you're not like luring nurses to other companies, right? You're just recruiting those nurses who are working, already putting in 40 hours at the hospital, at somewhere else, and they want to hustle and earn another 10 hours. Those are your target market people, correct?
Yes, and more. So what the healthcare market is going towards, like I mentioned earlier, we're heading toward where everyone is becoming their own person. Like they're going to contract themselves out for services. So it's not only the moonlighting opportunities, but it's for anyone who wants to moonlight full time. So they're not necessarily tied down to one facility. They can work in one facility one day, work a 3-month contract, take a break, go work at another facility for any number of days or weeks or whatever that they want. And what our platform actually allows them, how it helps them to do that is when we credential them, when we check their license, and we background check them, that onboarding process is shortened significantly to allow them to do that. So no longer do they have to go through that onboarding process with each facility. We take care of that already. The healthcare facility just has to pay us, and we take care of all the administrative and payment and all of that. So it's going to enable them to be utilized more in the marketplace, especially since there is a shortage.
That sounds great. However, when we're talking healthcare, I can't help but to wonder if they're working that many hours, how do you ensure that there isn't any fatigue, or that you aren't doing like the truck drivers who they're working more hours than they need to work?
Right. So we actually don't exercise any level of control over what jobs they take, how much they charge per hour, and they have full control to decline any job. So we're simply a platform that enables them to accept opportunities. And this just goes back to the independent contractor model of doing business in this space. They have control over their own schedule, everything. So if they feel like if they're too fatigued to take a job, they're more than welcome, if they receive a request, to decline that request. And that's one of the advantages of the app.
I'll let Adrian go first. Hold on a second.
Well, so you brought up the app. Is this just an app on your phone that you just, whenever you want to dial in and say, hey, there's like a listing of jobs, they can just scroll through them and say, okay, yeah, I want to take that one, or I'm going to submit myself for that? Is that kind of how that works?
Correct. So basically, we have a website. We have mobile web, which is Safari or Chrome on your browser, mobile browser, as well as we're just completing up our mobile application. And we're just trying to throw in a couple cool enhancements that once we launch will allow you to make that process simpler.
Right, right. No, the only reason, because I've got a buddy that is specifically in like chiropractic and physical health. Kind of the same thing, just a virtual office out of the house, but they've got an app where they just send out to all the contractors, hey, we've got somebody that needs their back adjusted in, Fort Worth, who's out there, who can take the job on. Is that kind of the same kind of premise?
So it's very similar.
Obviously going to be long-term, but.
Right. It's very similar, but the thing is most of these companies that roll in these applications, most of them are either have already a part of that company or they're staffed by that company. So already the company that rolled out this app already has an overhead. They're not concentrated on the staffing model. They're concentrated on the physical therapy or the chiropractor model. Whereas, like we said, we have 10 positions we're rolling out, or 10 different professions, and then we'll slowly grow after that. So your friend's app that he used, maybe physical therapy or chiropractor, but they're not going to go into nursing.
I'm just saying you're going to try to provide that same thing.
Yes, we will. Yes, yeah.
I have a few questions, and building on what Adrian said, one of my good friends is a dentist, and oftentimes, she has an issue where somebody might call in sick or their child is sick. Will your app be utilized for short-term fulfillment, like for a day or 2 days, or is it really long-term assignments?
No, as short as a couple of hours, a day, a week. Yes.
And then how many healthcare providers and facilities are utilizing the app currently in the Dallas area?
So we're beta testing, launching in April. So we have about 3 facilities that we're kind of beta testing that are friends that own nursing homes and hospice clinics, and about 10 professionals that have been beta testing with us as well.
And then my last question is, I see that you're undercutting the competition on price, but the variance is tremendous. So if your competition is at 20 to, 40% or 30% on that one slide just done, there were a couple of percentages there. Maybe you can go back to it. You are offering 2%. So on the placement fee, for example, and even on the healthcare employer line, the top line, why, let's go to 10%, 2%. Why 2% versus 10 to 20%? Because obviously there's an opportunity for upside. So why would you undercut with such a large variance and leave so much money on the table?
There are several reasons for this. One, it is going to be a very competitive market, and we need that cost structure to be attractive to healthcare facilities, large and small, to at least try us out. And 2, our costs really are that low to where we feel like once they start trying us out, we're going to do better through volume. That's just our theory. So we're open to.
Here's just my thinking.
No, that's-
And it may not be the correct thinking, but my thinking is this. You've talked about a lot of different ways in which you can differentiate. You talked about your 24/7 access. You talked about some other advancements you have in placement, all of the people who are on your team who have backgrounds in this area. You also talked about how you are specializing in this one particular industry versus your competition who are serving multiple industries. Anytime you start really low at like 2%, or if you try to differentiate based on low pricing, when people fall in love with your service, incredibly hard to sell them on a higher percentage. Maybe Adrian would disagree with me. I mean, he's the professional here, but I would just caution differentiating based on cost and trying to make this a volume-based business?
Sure. That's a great question, and we've actually argued every day. We're like, she's like, no, 5, 10%, no, 2, 3%. And maybe we could chat with Adrian afterwards, and maybe he can give us opinions. But it's really easy to I guess, start with the high price and go down. And we'll, of course, we'll discuss it after this meeting, kind of decide what everyone. Correct.
Another thing is,
No, you're right.
I guess we're more in line with these guys here. Isn't that what they charge, the upcharge?
Yeah, so
50%?
actually the full-time hire, the permanent placement, we didn't even want to go into it, but we looked at our competition, we looked at what staffing agencies and recruiting agencies currently do. We're like, let's just throw it in there. If we get 2%, we feel like the 15% margin is already gravy. But if we get that 2% and someone is posting full-time hires with us, that's just icing on the cake for us. But I think after this conversation, we'll probably discuss it if
Well,
there's
and another
confusion.
thing is, this is more of a draw to get people in to use the app, because we know that the independent contractor model is what's prevalent in the industry. So really, we're looking to make money here, not necessarily here.
Yes.
All right,
we
I'm
are.
going to throw my 2 cents worth in. So, having been on the other side, I will say that while those are enticing, I think it's going to really impede your scalability. You may have little overhead now, but you're going to incur more overhead going forward, and that may be a challenge. There's a reason those rates are what they are by the other people, other companies. So I'm not saying match it. I'm saying you may not want to start out as low, just a suggestion. It's your
Okay.
business. But it is a lot harder to go raise than to drop them. So.
And if I can just say one comment. So the other industries, they have huge overhead. Locations close to big hospitals, clinics, Houston, Dallas, downtown, so they have huge overhead. Whereas we're a digital company. Yes, we do know that as we scale, it's going to cost us more to operate. But a lot of our services is volume-based. If we have 5 users that we're doing background checks and all these different services, it's a higher price. But the more users we have on, our overhead is actually getting less. So we have contracted rates with some of these providers that, hey, the more we scale, the less we're going to pay. But we're probably going to look at the suggestion about hiring that percentage, and we'll discuss it afterwards.
All right, to both Melissa's and Matt's point, and let's be on this slide for a moment, and then could you help me clarify the point wherein on one side there is a job board, right? The Indeed, Monster, and ZipRecruiter, and their fees are per job or per year, number of jobs, and that would be more on that 2%, 1% fees in general. And then there is this recruiting agency service, which is more like they do the vetting process, interview process, and they charge the 20 to 30%. Now, I assume or understand that your service, like more like an Uber or something, falls under the staffing, the job board service, right? Is there anything that you're doing, what the staffing agency does in terms of the interview process and all those things, where the charge of the service comes in?
So what we do is, like I talked about this a bit earlier, is shorten that onboarding time. So we do the background check and license verification before the professional is active on our site. So if they're active on our site, they've bypassed certain tests already. They have to also pass a FACES check, is that right? Which is the healthcare abuse check that we also perform. We do not conduct any interviews because that is not conducive with the independent contractor model. There are certain requirements that all professionals have to meet, but aside from that, we're more or less hands-off. So that goes in line with kind of staying in the independent contractor model and not exercising too much control.
In a typical healthcare recruiting industry, is there an interview process involved after your guy goes in and before the other side wants to hire him?
Yes, there is. So in the traditional staffing model, they're actually hiring people as employees. So there's a certain amount of overhead for hiring somebody as an employee. And then when they contract them out, they're adding that 40% on top of that employee's hourly rate and paying that employee whatever hourly rate that is. So their model is different.
Okay, we've unfortunately run out of time, so there are more questions we can answer, we're going to have asked as we go out into the lobby and network. But I'd like to thank you for your presentation, and then the last question we always ask is, today, what can we do for you?
Well, this was really helpful. I'm just to get the kinks worked out. It's good to hear what you all think about our, I guess, our idea that that you understand it. We've come a long way in that, and we're going to take a second look at what we charge for sure, and talk to a few more people, maybe run a few more tests. But how else?
I guess for me, I'm not very comfortable talking in front of people a lot of times, and so this helps a lot, and also gives great feedback. I mean, the questions everyone asked really got me thinking about how I can fix some problem areas, some gaps maybe I've missed or overlooked, and so yeah, so it helped a lot, and I really appreciate it. We did get to that. Hold on. Yes. Yes, introducing us to medical facilities, medical professionals, anyone in the industry, I think that would be just greatly appreciated. We're always looking to expand into other areas with more positions later on in the future. So really, any contact is not a bad contact. Any contact is just someone we can speak to and explain the application to.